This is Lions Uncaged on talkSPORT 2. I'm your host, Alfie Reynolds, and alongside me is the former England and London Irish winger, Topsy Ojo, for another busy show, Topsy. We've got lots to review, a lot to look ahead to. The Lions have their first win on Aussie soil. How are you, mate?
I'm really good, mate. I'm really good. Like I say, glad that the tour is finally underway. I want to ask how you are, though, because I guess you're the one out there doing the hard yards. So how was it being in the stadium, seeing the tour kick off in earnest?
Do you know what? It was great, Topsy. It was really, really good. It was a great occasion. We'll get into all of it, but just to be there, to start to see the Lions fans kind of dribble in like they are here, and don't get me wrong, it's so impressive of how many are making the trip for the full thing, but I think it's only going to grow as we get into the tour. I've come to Brisbane now, which feels a lot more like a rugby city as well. So do you know what, Topsy? What I'm excited about is just how it's going to grow throughout the whole tour.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot of moving parts, like I say, now weekend to weekday. So hope you got your travel legs ready.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. Most of the washing was done when I left Perth, so I'm fully stocked. I'm fully
There we
stocked for
go.
the next few weeks because I don't think I'm going to have any time. But look, as I say, really busy show over the next hour. We'll be looking back at the Lions' opening win on Australia soil as they beat the Western Force 54-7. Plenty to break down from that win. Wales scrum half and Premiership Player of the Season Tomos Williams has been ruled out of the tour, though, due to an injury he picked up on Saturday. We'll delve deeper into that and the issues with injury the Lions have had in that all-important scrum half position. We'll also look back at the incredible 2017 tour in New Zealand as the Lions beat the All Blacks in a thrilling second test in Wellington 8 years ago. That's going to make us all feel old. Plus, Andy Farrell has named his 23 to face the Queensland Reds on Wednesday, right here on talkSPORT 2. Jamison Gibson Park and Hugo Keenan are back. Great news for the Lions, and we'll hear from Farrell a little bit later on as well. So the Lions beat the Western Force 54-7 in their opening game on Australian soil. Topsy, the Lions were expected to win, and they did comfortably. What did you make of the performance? Because at halftime, I wasn't convinced it was going to end up being that scoreline.
Yeah, it's one of those. Like, I think the game kind of went as expected. I think as long as you know the timeline of when the points were scored, then actually the scoreline does reflect how the game played out. The first 10, 15 minutes were probably uncomfortable. In fact, yeah, probably the first quarter in terms of a lot of unforced errors leading to unnecessary pressure being put on the Lions. I know the kickoff and restarts, which we'll get into, was a real issue, but they got stronger as the game went on. I think the luxury of being able to unload a fully international bench told. So actually, you're wearing down what was the worst performing Australian Super Rugby side. And actually, there were quite a lot of games through the season where they'd concede 30, 40 points. So I think the fact that the Lions got stronger as the game went on, the fact that they were able to problem solve on the run as well, the fact that quite a lot of the guys put their hands up going forward will be really pleasing to Andy Farrell. So, as much as you want to look for problems in a 54-7 win, I think it's the start that he would have loved and, gives him more to think about going forwards.
Oh well, call me a negative journalist, but don't you worry, I'm going to be coming at you now with a problem. But
Right.
it's funny actually. I spoke to Nick White after the game, and he was really positive. I mean, look, it was a record crowd for a Western Force game. They were really pleased with how they went about their business, particularly in the first half. And he basically admitted what you just said, in that they almost dropped like a stone when the Lions bench came on. They couldn't keep up with the intensity, and it was the Lions that were able to pull away. Speaking of negatives, though. You've mentioned it there, Topsy. Restarts. We've got to have a chat about this. How big a concern
Yeah.
is that?
It will be a concern, but I think they will be confident that they can rectify that very quickly. Again, when you're looking at the combinations they're trying to build, restarts is a pod system. So if you've got a different second row every other day working with different props, even you see flankers, you even see backs getting involved in that area of the game as well. If that doesn't function, it puts a real spotlight on that. So yes, there are issues. A lot went on Scott Cummings and his pod, but it's not just down to the second row. That's a relationship that needs to be built, no different to a line out. So concerning because it did put so much pressure on the team in terms of unforced errors and allowing the Western Force to get into the game. But I think the coaches will be confident that they can rectify that very, very quickly. They'll need to, because again, we've spoken about kicking previously. This is another area of kicking within the game, and Australia will look at that and say that might be an area we can target.
Yeah, flashbacks to Australia at Twickenham in November. Joseph Suaalii, he who caused havoc with England on
Prime
restarts that
example.
day.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely the sort of thing that Joe Schmidt and the Wallabies will be looking at and thinking, okay, well, that's interesting. But you're right. I think the good thing, and having spoken to the Lions after, and I asked Andy Farrell about it in the press conference, I spoke to Ollie Chesham in the mix zone, and I think it is quite fixable. Like, it's a coaching thing. It's not necessarily they don't have the skills to be able to deal with this. It's just the execution, and that's what was poor on the day. Speaking of second rows, though, British and Irish Lions lock Joe McCarthy had a great game. Ben Kay selected him as talkSPORT's leader of the pack. He also picked up the official Player of the Match award, and I caught up with him exclusively following the game.
I think it was a step up. It felt like a step in the right direction for this group. Playing to work on it was tough. I think it's probably a taste of what's to come. Aussies like to play really fast, really good athletes, and keep the ball alive. So
was that difficult in the first half that the game was played at such a pace?
Oh yeah, big time, big time. It was. We kind of came out the blocks firing, and then they probably let them into game, a few penalties here and there, and they were back in our 22 for a long period. So no, it was tough.
Does it feel like this is another good building block, though, off the back of Argentina heading in the right direction?
Yeah, 100%. Thought the intent, the energy was there, and it's probably just a few small hiccups, a few bit of discipline here and there, and maybe I think we'll get more cohesive with our attack and line out and everything. So
the focus is the team performance, but how pleased from a personal point of view?
Yeah, I was happy enough. Just wanted to sort of just rip into the game and just get stuck into the tour, so get up and running. So I'm happy enough.
Joe McCarthy speaking to me following the victory over the Western Force. Topsy, how impressed were you with his performance?
He was brilliant. He was really, really good. And I mean, taking his own words, he was just able to rip into the game. In the loose, he was rampaging. He was able to find himself out on the wings in a bit of open space as well. But it's like every time he got involved in the game, it looked meaningful. He looked dynamic. He looked aggressive. And, you know, obviously we're playing the game of who's going to partner Maro Itoje in that second row. I think, you know, that's the way to make an impression. That's the way to put your hand up and say, I should be the guy going into that number 5 shirt. So brilliant for Joe. I thought he played very, very well. And yeah, like I say, he's put his name in the hat for sure.
Topsy, as always, you're one step ahead of me. That is exactly where I was going to lead this conversation in terms of who partners Maro Itoje. So I've got a theory on this, right? I think against Argentina, we saw Maro Itoje and Tyg Burn in the second row together, which is a bit of a lighter second row combination. Two great players, but a bit lighter compared with some of the other options the Lions have. I just wonder whether off the back of that, Farrell has seen that and how the Lions went in that game, has seen how well Joe McCarthy played and also how good Ollie Chesham was off the bench, who is going to start in the second row in the game against the Reds. We'll be coming on to that game later. I just wonder whether we're looking at one of the bigger bodies, second rows playing alongside Maro in the test matches, then that's shifting a Tyg Burn or possibly a Chesham to 6. And then you've got Van der Fleer, Tom Curry, Jack Morgan playing for the 7 shirt with Jack Conan in prime position for number 8, possibly Earl or Pollock. That's how I see it at this moment in time. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree because, you know, I mean, you don't want to make your plans depend on the opposition. But actually, if you're looking at areas where the Lions might look to squeeze Australia, line out would definitely be one. And physicality would be the other. Now, if you look at what the Australian pack might be, you're looking at a Taniela Tupou and a Will Skelton starting, and that is a lot of mass. So actually, if you don't have that within your own pack to combat it, you then give them the advantage possibly in the scrum and definitely in the line out in terms of the maul and those closer encounters as well. So having a big pack allows you to dictate, allows you to enforce, and allows your backline to come into the game. So yeah, I would agree. I mean, we've seen it through the Six Nations teams going for kind of a heavier lock combination and almost a lock 6 at 6, so that you give yourself weight, mass, and you give yourself multiple line-out options as well.
Yeah, it's interesting actually though on Taniela Tupou, because he has been released by Joe Schmidt to play for the Waratahs in the game on Saturday. And the suggestion in the Aussie press is actually Joe Schmidt is not releasing any players that he won't have playing in that first test. So maybe Tupou's going to drop out, which I think is a fascinating one. Just quickly, Topsy, before we break, I've got to ask you about Henry Pollock. Did get yellow carded, although that was more of an accumulation of penalties. What do you make of his performance? He can do things that no one else in that squad can, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I was thrilled for him, really thrilled for him, because again, you know, as the new kid on the block, the youngest on tour, he's got to look after Bill, coming into this, getting his first experience of the Lions, his first start. I think he was brilliant. And yes, this is the thing, you get a lot with Henry, but that's his personality. That's who he is. And ultimately, he does his talking on the pitch. So, yes, there was the fracas after the Elliot Daly try, which was absolutely fine. I mean, again, you're talking about a 20-year-old who's not scared to ruffle feathers. But again, you look at his contributions in the loose with his carrying, in the tight with some of his breakdown work as well, his tackling. I think he combined with Josh van der Fleer very, very well. Like I say, Van der Fleer maybe went under the radar, but he had nearly 20 odd tackles with no misses. So
Yeah.
as a trio, you need to do your work so that the others can shine. And I think Henry definitely shone on Saturday. So fair play to him. Well done. And yeah, please just keep going.
He just makes stuff happen, doesn't he? At this moment in time, I would still have Conan most likely starting that first test, and I think it's between Earl and Pollock for the bench spot because they bring such dynamism and versatility in terms of the replacements. But geez, he just does stuff that other players don't necessarily do. The chip over the top, he made things happen. He set up tries. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Now, Andy Farrell has named his team to take on the Queensland Reds on Wednesday. As expected, plenty of changes, 14 in total. Finn Russell is the only player that played against the Western Force that will start. There's also first appearances on the tour for Hugo Keenan and Jamison Gibson Park, and James Ryan is on the bench. So the team in full, just to run you through it: Andrew Porter, Ronan Kelleher and Will Stewart are the front row. Maura Itoje captains the side in the second row, and he's alongside his England teammate Ollie Chesham. Tom Curry at 6, it's Jack Morgan at 7, and Jack Conan at 8. Then Jamison Gibson Park and Finn Russell, the halfback pairings. We'll definitely be speaking to Topsy about that. Bundy Aki and Hugh Jones in the centres, with Duan van der Merwe, Tommy Freeman and Hugo Keenan completing the back three. Cowan Dickey, Genge, Beelum, Ryan, Earl, Mitchell, Finn Smith and Ringrose on the bench. Back with Topsy in just a second, but the big news of the day here in Brisbane revolved around Tomos Williams. Scored 2 tries, the second one absolutely sensational as the Lions beat the Western Force on Saturday, but he pulled up and he instantly clutched his hamstring. Unfortunately, he's now officially been ruled out of the tour, and I caught up with Andy Farrell earlier today to ask about that injury.
We're not just going to miss an outstanding player. I mean, I thought he played unbelievably well, and it was some try, wasn't it, that he actually got injured by. But we're going to miss the bloke. We've only been together for a few weeks now, but his character is everything that you want to have in your group. He's very popular. It's a little bit tougher for all.
Oh, Topsy, I know it happens every tour, and the statistics suggest that there will be other players that get injured at some point on this Lions tour and drop out as well. But geez, you feel for Tomos Williams, don't you? Particularly because he was playing so well.
Yeah, it's such a shame. I was gutted for him. The moment you see it happen and he grab his hamstring, you're like, regardless of even if that's just the mildest of tweak, you're talking 10 days to 2 weeks, and it's such a short tour, and obviously don't know the full diagnosis, but you thought, oh, is that going to be the end of his tour? And turns out it is. He will be missed for sure, because he was obviously one of the small Wales contingent that were out there. He's been involved in the squad for a couple of weeks now. He would have made friends. He was playing really, really well, which I guess, rubs a bit of salt into the wound that he was playing brilliantly. He's just scored a length of the field try, and then he pings his hamstring. So he will be missed for sure. Like I say, not just the player, but the character as well. But you touched on it. This is what happens with the Lions. Unfortunately, there are injuries, and you need the next guy to step up, to integrate quickly, and to kind of pick up where Tomos has left off.
Yeah, well, Andy Farrell said medium to long term, which doesn't sound good, particularly when it's a hamstring. And it's that strange thing, isn't it, that Tomos Williams is going to be home back in Wales or in Gloucester midweek without his family having travelled out here and seen him play. Like it is so tough. Ben White called up though. What a great opportunity for him. So he's in New Zealand with Scotland, so it's a relatively straightforward flight for him. Were you surprised that it's not Jack Van Portfleet, given that he was the guy that was called up to help the Lions prepare for that game in against Argentina in Dublin?
Not completely, no, because, Jack Van Portfleet would have been maybe the first name based off being called up. But if you actually look at the starting scrum-halves from the Six Nations, the fact that obviously Ben White's season was a bit extended as Toulon progressed in the top 14 knockout phases. So maybe he wasn't available as readily. But he would have been in contention for sure. Does it help that he was I say only, he's in New Zealand, he's nearby, possibly, but I think, he would have probably been the next name after the guys initially selected to come into that squad as a starter for his country. So very happy for Ben. Of course, used to seeing him a few years back in the green jersey of London Irish behind me. So excited that he now gets the opportunity to go out there and become a Lion.
Yeah, I was joking to people earlier that this new England Players Union are surely going to be negotiating with the RFU and saying, in a Lions year, we tour near where the Lions are playing, because
Yeah.
a 30-hour journey for Jack Van Portfleet, a 3, 4, 5-hour journey for Ben White. I don't know whether that is a factor in it, but it does help that they can get him in straight away. And also what it does mean is Alex Mitchell gets an opportunity to go again, Topsy. I suppose, first of all, he's going to have a lot of rugby in his legs, but second of all, on a Lions tour, that's absolutely what you want, isn't it? You want as many opportunities as possible to put yourself in the frame.
Yeah, you do, definitely. It's a balancing act as well. You want to be out there because, as a scrum half, you're very, very influential. You're going to touch the ball more than any other player on the pitch. So actually being able to get into a rhythm to build those combinations that you need to with both the forwards and your fly half in particular is absolutely huge. So yeah, Alex will want as many minutes as he can, as will Gibson Park as well, who finally we get to see for the first time. Those guys, he'll know that Alex has had a couple of run-outs, but yeah, when there's only 3 scrum halves in the squad and only one of you can start and one on the bench, it's actually very, very competitive. And they'll become close mates because of that, but also they'll be the most competitive of the players out there because they know only 2 out of the 3 of them can be in that test squad.
Yeah, as I said already, I really feel for Tomos, because I think he's done a brilliant job off the bench against Argentina, and then starting against the Western Force, of really putting himself in the frame, perhaps partly benefiting from the fact that Gibson Park hasn't played yet. We'll see how he goes on Wednesday, but I really felt that Tomos Williams was looking like he was going to be involved in the test series. So brutal for him. Just to move us on for a second, though, much has been made of the foreign-born Lions over the course of the summer already. We'd have heard all about it. And the Aussies are by no means going to forget about it. So the stadium announcer on Saturday, when reading the teams out, made sure to single out 4 players in the Lions team. You may well have heard about this or seen about it. He went something like this. It went our former Aussie at number 14, Matt Hansen, another Aussie at number 12, Sione Tuipulotu. At number 11, it's the Kiwi, now Irishman, James Lowe. At prop, the former South Africa schoolboy, now Scotsman, Pierre Schoeman. Now, James Lowe hit back at this, saying hopefully a few more Kiwis or Saffers play next week and we can keep the same gag going if we keep on getting the same result. Rangers legend Ali McCoist was alongside Jeff Stelling on the breakfast show this morning, and he said he absolutely loved it.
Anywhere in Australia, you're almost guaranteed it. Australia's one of these places you would go to play sport, right? You'd be actually disappointed if you didn't get sledged or wound up, because they're probably the best in the business at it, and they take great pride in it, almost as much as their sporting performance. So we knew this was going to happen. And do you know what it's done as well? I don't keep remembering says it's created a little bit more interest as well, intrigue. It's like boxers before the game, they have an argument or a shoving match to sell the bout. It's a little bit of that as well.
Of course.
It's selling the test match, and I don't have a problem with.
Topsy, do you agree with Ali McCoist? No problems here. It's all quite good. It's all part of the spirit of the tour, of just a little bit of back and forth between the host nation and the Lions.
Yeah, me personally, I have no issue with it at all. I think, like I say, sledging is the word. Australia are notorious for it, and actually, from the other side of the fence, there's nothing better than being sledged and actually being able to ram it back down their throats by winning by 54 points to 7. So it had no impact. I can see in a room somewhere someone saying unprofessional. This is actually an issue that has rumbled on in the background. But as Ali touched on, these are all stories that feed into the tour, feed into the storyline, bring eyeballs, bring audiences, bring awareness, kind of take the Lions outside of the rugby audience and into a wider audience as well. So, some will agree, some will disagree. I don't mind it at all. It's no different to, Ben Cavalier saying, you should play your test stars, and Joe Schmidt saying, no, we shouldn't. We'll do what we want. It's all fun and games that become stories that we get to talk about.
I wonder if it does keep on happening, whether it will irritate the Lions at some point. I think probably not, having been in the press conference with Maro Itoje and Andy Farrell today. I mean, they didn't seem bothered at all. I know James Lowe had a little bit of a nibble in terms of the quote that I read out previously, but I wonder if it does keep happening, whether it does get to the point where it irritates the Lions. I couldn't speak about this, though, Topsy, without asking you, what's the best sledging you were ever on the end of, and where was it?
The best sledging I ever had. Gosh, I don't know. See, I just kept myself to myself, to be honest. Like, I didn't really tend to get involved too much in it. Again, I let my rugby do the talking and handle it that way.
Must have been the shed at Gloucester or somewhere like that,
Yeah,
surely,
the shed,
when you're
you
running
get your
along the wing there, yeah.
you get your EORs and all of that, and but nothing like nothing that would rival what the Aussies are doing. We're too nice in England. We like a tiny bit of heckling, but nothing that would make the papers.
I think it's that you're too nice, Topsy. People didn't want to chuck anything at you. They're like, nah, he's a nice bloke.
Too busy scoring tries, so
that's it.
We can't touch him. We'll go after an easier target.
Yeah, well, although in the same time, Chris Ashton scored lots of tries, but I think he got plenty of sledging in his career. So who knows? Play. Look, I agree though. Look, it's all good fun. It's all part of it. I think it builds the narrative quite nicely. Let's see if it keeps happening. As I mentioned already, I'm currently in Brisbane as the Lions prepare to take on the Queensland Reds live and exclusively here on talkSPORT 2 on Wednesday. That match kicks off 11 a.m. UK time. But ahead of that, I caught up with the Reds hooker, Matt Faisler, earlier today, and I asked him how special it would be to beat the Lions.
Pretty crazy, I think. For world-class international teams. To beat them and to beat them at home, it'd be awesome for our fans.
Topsy, to kind of bring you into the feel of Brisbane, I suppose, it's been really noticeable for me, even though I've been here about 24 hours, that it feels like more of a rugby city. Rugby is a bigger game here. It still has rugby league to compete with, but I'm just really getting the feel that it's gonna mean more to the people here. I think the atmosphere at Suncorp on Wednesday is going to be brilliant. And you look at the Reds, did pretty well in Super Rugby. Do you expect them to give the Lions a much, much tougher test?
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be a way more difficult challenge. I think maybe a bit more of a raucous atmosphere as well. And as we get closer to the Test series, I think the audience will say, right, these are our better chances of winning these games. So let's make it a bit hostile. Let's make it a bit intimidating. Let's give the team the best chance of turning over the Lions, because again, what an opportunity. You only get to do this every 12 years. So for the guys that are going to run out there on Wednesday, seize the opportunity. Take the moment to beat this star-studded team that, like you say, they start for their countries every single week. So actually, let's go and knock them off their perch and let's give a little boost to the Test team ahead of the series starting.
Yeah, and personally, the Reds are now my favourite Super Rugby team because they gave us some beers after the press conference earlier. So that's just really bringing all of you behind the scenes here. But I appreciate the hospitality of the Reds. So let's hear from the Lions head coach, Andy Farrell. He announced the squad to face the Queensland Reds this Wednesday. That match will be live and exclusively on talkSPORT 2. I caught up with him following the announcement, and I started by asking him whether Blair Kinghorn would be joining the squad a little bit later after his Toulouse side won the top 14 at the weekend.
No, we fast tracked that a little bit quicker actually, so he could get here and be available as soon as possible. So he gets in this evening.
You mentioned Hugo, Jameson, James Ryan on the bench. How pleased are you for those guys to get game time now that we're properly into the thick of the tour?
Obviously, they've been nursing a little bit of an injury, so they'll be glad to get back to full fitness and training with the squad, etc. And I'm sure it's been a tough enough old time watching everyone get going and up to speed. So I'm sure that they're raring to go.
And 6 players from the bench last game start this one, plus Alex Mitchell is still there. We saw similar from Argentina into Western Force. Is that how you would like to keep rotating the team?
At the minute, obviously we've got an injury there and a devastating one there to Thomas, but I don't know what's going to happen after this. We've got to dust ourselves down and fly over to Sydney. This is a 4-dayer, so this week's going to be interesting.
So Jamison, Gibson Park and Hugo Keenan both start for the Lions for the first time we see them this tour. Topsy, Jamison, Gibson Park and Finn Russell. Many people ahead of the series would have had that as their halfback pairing for the Test series. What are you looking for from them for their first outing playing together?
To pretty much do what Tomos Williams and Finn Russell did on Saturday in terms of control, in terms of tempo, in terms of kicking game, and come up with the big plays when it matters. I think that's the reason why Gibson Park has been seen as the guy that's going to start the Test alongside Finn Russell. But yeah, Gibson Park's he's got a bit of catching up to do. You know, he's been nursing this injury. He gets a run out. He'll want to come through that unscathed and look to build as the weeks and the days go on and actually establish a good partnership with Finn Russell, who, you know, he won't have built yet. So excited to see how the two of them go. I think, like you say, for the guys that have been watching the others, it's really, really tough because you want nothing more than to be out there playing with the team, to get that experience of being a Lion and having the jersey on. So for Gibson Park, for Hugo Keenan, James Ryan, the guys that get their first outings, and of course, Blair Kinghorn flying in as well, then the squad is complete, it's whole, and we can then obviously continue to play the game of who's putting their hands up for the Test series. So it'd be good to see how they go on Wednesday.
Yeah, well, speaking of Hugo Keenan, as I mentioned, he starts at fullback against the Reds, and I spoke exclusively to him following the squad announcement and asked how excited he is to finally get the chance to play in that famous red jersey.
Delighted to get a run out. I'm really excited for it. It's sort of been a little bit frustrating being injured, missing out on the first game or two. But yeah, just looking forward to getting out in the pitch and putting on that red jersey for the first time.
How's the recovery been? There wasn't any point where you weren't sure whether you'd be able to get fit for the tour, was there?
No. I swear I was probably going to miss the first 2 weeks. We had targeted this Reds game as the one to get back for. So luckily have brilliant support and physio staff in both Leinster and in the Lions. So they've kept me on track, thankfully. So been smooth sailing. Frustrating, obviously, but just delighted to have that in the past.
An understandably excited Hugo Keenan, who will be making his Lions debut on Wednesday. Topsy, can I cast your mind back to the first time you wore the England shirt, for example, or any big debut in your career? Just how excited were you? What was the anticipation like ahead of a big game, a huge moment for you in a personal sense?
It's special. It's everything you've kind of wished for, hoped for, dreamed for, and then it's right in front of you. You get named, and then there's that build up into the game. There's match day as well. The annoying thing will be it's an evening game, so you then have to sit around all day to wait for the moment. But then you get to run out, and I hope, obviously, for Hugo, he has that kind of 10, 15 seconds where he runs out and just looks around and says, all right, here we go. This is the moment to get excited, to enjoy what I'm about to go and do. And then you park it all to one side and know that you've got a job to do. Because as we've touched on in previous conversations, kicking is going to be huge in this Test series. I see it as an area where, because the laws have changed around access and not being able to block the guy catching it, genuine 50-50 competition in the air. And a coach like Les Kiss with the Reds will look at, right, aerially, who can we target? And Hugo is very, very good in the air, but he is not the biggest. So it is an area to go and cause some chaos. So he'll know that there's a lot of that coming his way.
And fullback's a really interesting position because, as you've mentioned, Blair Kinghorn isn't there yet. He's going to be linking up with the squad this week. Hugo Keenan has been injury. And Elliot Daly, who can play multiple positions, I think has played pretty well. He played very well against the Western Force. So you do feel like it's so up for grabs, that position.
Yeah, strong competition. I thought Elliot Daly was brilliant on the weekend. I think just assured and very calm in what he did. And as with fullback, you could only have one fullback. And then you're looking at, right, who's a bit versatile, who can cover wing to get themselves into that squad. So Hugo will understand, Blair Kinghorn's arriving with another top 14 medal around his neck. So his tires will be pumped and he'll be full of confidence. He's also fit and match ready as well, whereas Hugo hasn't played. He's had a bit of a disrupted back end to the season. So he'll know. Elliot played well. Marcus Smith covers 10-15. Blair is on his way, so I need to take this opportunity to shine because I've been spending the last couple of weeks watching the others have all the fun.
And just finally, Topsy, we're always speaking about selection and preparation and combinations, in particular with the Gibson Park and Finn Russell playing side by side for the first time. But It's so tough, this, isn't it, for the Lions, which is the whole point of the tour. But just for context here, game in Perth on Saturday, travel to Brisbane Sunday, name the team for the Wednesday game on Monday, and I understand they weren't able to fully train, or they just had a walkthrough today. They weren't out on the grass properly. Then it's captain's run Tuesday, which again, you'll know more than me, but you don't do a huge amount at, and then game again Wednesday, and then almost copy and repeat, heading to Sydney, Canberra, Adelaide. Like, the Lions don't have much time to properly practice this.
No, they're into it for real now. And like you say, training time's actually going to be very limited now they're out there, because the priority is to recover the guys that have just played. Think about who needs to double up again in 3-4 days' time. Start to think about the test team as well and how you're going to manage them. So you then almost start to get into this world where the squad gets a bit split, because we need you guys to focus on the game that's coming up. We need the rest of you to help get them ready. But also, if you're going to play the next game, we want to make you as well prepared as possible. So this is where the guys who are planning the tour and organizing all the logistics earn their money as well, because they're into it now for real. So many moving parts, so much travel, so much logistical nightmare to kind of get your head around, with the ultimate goal of making sure that the Bears are best prepared as possible to go out and deliver in the matches. So it's real tricky, but this is the Lions, and yeah, this is what we're here for.
That's all part of the challenge. That's all part of the fun. So as I say, it will be more content coming your way throughout the week here on talkSPORT 2 and talkSPORT, and interviews I'm getting with the camp. Thanks for the last hour, Topsy. You're back together on Thursday. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, another game to unpick, to get stuck into, and it's the best now, isn't it? Actually, the action's out there, and like I said at the top of the show, quietly jealous now. You're in the stadium, you're soaking it up. You're doing it for real. And yeah, I know that there's a lot of the downside, the traveling and all of that, and the lovely million hotel rooms you'll have. But yeah, mate, amazing time. And yeah, looking forward to Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm not complaining. We'll review the Reds game on Thursday and look ahead to the match on Saturday as well. You've been listening to Lions Uncaged here on talkSPORT.